for the last couple of days here on Citizen Television. And to talk a little bit more about that ahead of the Heads of State Summit here in Nairobi, Dr. Dev Hammond is the Assistant Secretary General of COMESA. Thank you very much for being with us here on Citizen Television, sir.
Thank you very much, Yvonne, for inviting COMESA to be here present. But first of all, let me say a good evening to all Kenyan and a good evening to television, Citizen Television. And once again, thank you for having the whole COMESA team here.
Great, thank you. So let's start by hearing your perspective on COMESA. 3 decades in the making. What would you say are its most visible achievements and perhaps where progress has stalled and needs to be accelerated?
As you know, that COMESA is a trading bloc. So first, COMESA is the one that had to define what is trade. Not only trade like a national trade, but trade between and among member states. And really to give trade a new dimension, that's why the head of state and government had created COMESA. So our first action was to make sure that we put in place the rules, the regulations, the procedures. Can you imagine that in all those days, for goods to be traveling from one spot to another spot, it was taking quite a number of days. Already what we have seen from the farmers, when they are producing perishable goods, the goods cannot stay for long. So really making sure that the goods cross the border at the right, within the right period of time. And we needed also to make sure that the tariffs among member states were eliminated. So all those defining trade, putting in place the regulation, the standard rules, and so on, that was the biggest achievement.
Yeah.
And the biggest achievement now you can see that you have got 21 member states that are trading, but not all of them are members of the free trade area. 16 of them are members of the free trade area, and the trade among them has increased. Today itself, we heard from the private sector that EAC, Kenya, 30% of its products are traded among the EAC. But who are the EAC countries?
Yeah.
With the exception of one country, Tanzania, the rest are members of the COMESA. So as you can see that EAC, COMESA, we have the same objective, that we empower our member states to trade among themselves.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mention EAC as well, because many countries on the continent, and indeed in COMESA, belong to multiple regional trading blocs. So you've got COMESA, you've got the East African Community, you've got SADC. Has this overlapping membership helped or hindered integration? And how do you think COMESA is interacting in this complexity?
Of course, dual membership, I think this is what I would say the sovereign decision that members make, whether to belong to one or to belong to more than one. It is a sovereign. So I'm sure that technician an expert must have made certain decisions on the basis of which certain member states join more than one or more than two. But of course, we depend, when we are doing certain programs, we will not have, for example, if I'm doing a road between Uganda and Kenya, joining the two countries, now whether you belong to EAC or you belong to COMESA, it will be the same. So how do we avoid the duplication? Is by working together. And that's why in 2008, the biggest initiative to bring the three bloc, like I say, SADC, East African Community, and COMESA together. And that has materialized last year, where now we have the minimum number of countries that have signed on to the tripartite free trade, and very soon we shall be trading on that one.
Yeah.
So already there are certain countries that are using the rules of origin, the certificate of origin of either COMESA or SADC or East African, and they are able to trade among themselves.
All right, and now, COMESA is operating, in the regime of the African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCTA. So is it still a relevant building block in, what is now continental integration, or does the AFCTA make regional blocks less relevant?
You see, the big dream is for all of us to have the continental free trade area. And the Abuja Treaty said that let's start with the regional integration. And that's why they created the 8th region. And after the 8th region, we ourselves, we decided that let's start bringing the regional blocks together. And that's how we created the tripartite. And after the tripartite start working, it is now going to be used for others to bring the other. For example, tomorrow it can be, we can bring on ECAS, we can bring ECOWAS and other regs, so that that becomes a real continental free trade area. Of course, the continental free trade area is a big, I would say, within which we are working, but we are helping. We are accelerating the continental integration, but of course we have to go the regional dimension and now the tripartite dimension. Yeah.
So even as, Africa is looking inward to ensure that we trade more, still trade on the continent, and I believe even within COMESA, is far less than in regional trading blocs such as, Europe and the European Union.
Okay,
what do you think we can do to foster more intra-African trade to get us to, because the population, we've got that, the materials we have, the finished products, the human capital. Yeah. What do you think we need to do?
We have a long way to go. Of course, we have constructed the linkages, the market linkages between all the countries, but also we need the connectivity, the physical connectivity, the corridors, infrastructure. Yeah. These are some of the work that are happening, and we are getting the support of our partners. And that's why maybe the deputy president today said that I want you people to think about 3 things. People, because your integration should be anchored on people. The people should be the one to benefit from it. It should be that the people anchor, and this is what we are doing. Yeah. Leveraging on technology. And that's why the team for this year has been leveraging on digitalization. Digitalization is a tool to make sure, like yesterday we saw, the farmers saying that if we bring internet throughout the whole country, access of information, and for them to know where the market is and where the goods are, and how far the goods have traveled, they will be able to track the export. So leveraging on technology is very important. The technology is good. And the third one is about partnering. We need to be partnering. Yeah. And that's the way we can really emerge victoriously. And like I said, already trade is taking place. We have widened the choice of our consumers. Consumers are getting a lot of things, but we do recognize that we have to move a bit faster. Yeah,
accelerate that speed.
Accelerate that speed.
But yet we're doing all of that in, the state of the world, which, we all understand at the moment. Global trade is becoming more fragmented. More countries around the world are looking more inwards. I mean, I think after the COVID pandemic, there's shifting supply chains. There's geopolitical rivalries, as we see around the world. To what extent do you think COMESA member states are exposed, and what can the trading bloc and the Secretariat perhaps do to cushion them and make them more resilient in the face of global situation tension?
No, like I said, the COMESA member states, the trade amongst them is only 14 billion. But the export trade, or the import trade, the export trade is 191 billion. So there is a market that is waiting for you there. And when that market is affected, we get also our export affected. But also we bring, our import is almost like 250 billion. So we are not operating in a vacuum. So what we are trying to do is that instead of you exporting your raw materials, make sure that those raw materials are transformed into semi or finished goods. Because that's the only way we can create wealth. Because our raw materials, when they go outside, the price that they fetch is very low. And with that low price that we obtain, it is impossible to grow our economy. And we need to grow our economy by transforming our raw material. And that's the way we can create employment for our people. So it is very critical. We are dependent on the outside market, but we need to grow our inside market also too. Yeah,
Absolutely.
we cannot ignore either one of them.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
of course the internal market is important. That's why we are growing. At the same time, the external market is still irrelevant for us.
Because there will be a big scramble for Africa all over again if it's not already happening.
Yes.
You know, with what's happening in the US and in Europe and, you know, the EU and China all, of course, coming in to, you know, sort out those geopolitical rivalries and tensions that are taking place. And so there is some who worry that, you know, the African countries could get back to